All right, sorry there. Do I mean, was there kids that were part of like neighboring families and whatnot that you like were good friends with over a long span of time?
Go. Go. We like I said, we were uh, the only, the most interface with other kids was at school. So because people moved around and from farm to farm and area to area, you didn't. I don't think most people had real close friends uh, when you were on the farm. I think as we grew older, we went to grade school in town, or when we went to high school, that's when you developed more friendships with people because we were with them every day, and you got to know them better, and so on and so forth. So most friendships, I think, developed when you were at school.
Mm-hmm. So there was a continuity of that. There
Yeah.
wasn't like highly migratory. You know what I mean? Like people kind of stayed there. They didn't. They moved around, but they stayed in the same area.
Yeah, right. When you were growing up, going
Yeah.
through high school and so on and so forth. After high school, then when kids would go to college or whatever, and a lot of people would move out then.
Right. So George moved out first,
Yeah,
right? And then who's next? Harry, right?
Harry. He
And
stayed
so
on the farm.
he stayed there,
Yeah.
and then but he went to school. Where did he went to? Um, he go to University of Nebraska? Where did he go?
Uh, yeah. At the end, in thinking back here, I think one of the reasons George left was he and Harry did not get along with each other.
Uh huh.
And I think that's at that time George left. And after that, Harry joined the Army. Uh, and after the Army, on the GI Bill, he went to school. I think he and, trying to think, I think he went to school initially in Ohio. Uh, I think he met Mary. I think he probably knew Mary before that. I think they both eventually went to school in Ohio before Harry then moved back to Nebraska, and he went to school in Lincoln, I think, the last couple of years or something like that.
Right. And so she's a Riki, and let me see here. Let me click on that. So were they had weren't they in Colorado or something?
In Denver.
In Denver,
Yes.
right? And so how did she end up?
I think
They
I
just
think
from
Harry
school they ended
I think
up there?
Harry met her in Denver, and I don't know any of the circumstances how that happened and all that, but I think he met her in Denver. There was a
Maybe part of
big
the army or
there was a
something? Or
big Japanese community in Denver, also.
mm-hmm. Huh. And so, yeah, so she's part of a slew of kids. And did you know them at all? Was there an
No,
overlap with Mary's family at all?
not until they got together.
Right.
Yeah, but after
But then
that,
after that,
yeah,
well, how far was Denver from Scottsbluff? That's like 400 miles? What is it? No, not even that much.
Well, it's about a couple hundred miles,
Yeah.
that's all.
So not around the corner, but not totally
Yeah.
across the country.
Right.
Okay. So what do you remember of Harry? Tell me about Harry. I mean, he ultimately became a pharmacist, right?
Yeah.
But like, what was he like to you?
I don't really remember him too much as a kid because, we were still young kids when he left to join the army. I knew he was in the army, and he was in Europe. I don't remember what it was, or what division or anything like that. It's for some reason the name Ranger is familiar, but I don't really remember what outfits he was in. Except I do know he was in Europe, and that's about it. After he got out of the service, I think at that time he had already met Mary, and so at some point in time, I guess they got married, and they were both in school. Like I said, I believe in Ohio, and he eventually gravitated back to Nebraska, where he got his degree in pharmacy.
Right. And so then, I think he had the oldest kids, right? Well, Mary, I guess Ron and Marilyn, are the oldest, right? I mean, do you remember that when they first started having
Oh, I
kids?
think
George never had any kids or anything or family?
No. No.
So, I mean, based on this, it shows Marilyn in 1950 and Ron
What was Ron?
1950,
Okay.
right? And then if we
I
skew
don't
down
really-
here, let's see, yeah, I think he's the oldest, definitely. I just, what do you remember? Do you remember any of that? Like your siblings having kids or being an uncle, or were you seeing, were you still a tight family at that point in time? Or what was the makeup by that span?
I don't really remember a lot of detail back then. I remember Harry, after he got out of school, graduated, he moved to Cheyenne, and he was a pharmacist there for Rodale Drugs. I remember Maryland, because one summer I went to live with them for a summer job at the drugstore. And I think she was probably a couple, 3 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm. And so,
But I don't really remember. I guess Ron was born sometime around that day, but I don't really remember too much about, because they lived in Alliance, which was 50 some miles away. I don't really remember too much at that time about Ron and Cindy. Obviously I knew they existed, but I don't think we had too much, or I don't remember too much interfacing with them.
right. So the first couple kids, there's George, and then you have Harry, who went to Cheyenne. You have, so people are moving away from Scottsbluff, it seems,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
As
Oh,
they
yeah.
get older.
Yeah, yeah,
Was it
yeah.
because of lack of opportunity or because of what they? I
Different
mean, how did
the
it?
situation. Like George moved out of town. Uh, Harry went into service. So at that time, Chuck stayed at home and he was farming, just like the other kids used to. Uh, after a while, uh, after we moved to town, Chuck got a job as a mechanic, as I remember, and he worked at. I remember he worked at the Oldsmobile place in town for a while, and then he and a buddy of his uh, formed their own brake shop that they had uh, after that. Tosh, and I think I probably told you this before, when we were living in, I think it was Lyman or someplace west of town, uh, he was kind of the black sheep of the family. And so he moved out, and I don't know whether he was forced out or he moved out on his own, but I remember at one point he lived in a dairy. He stayed at a dairy, and then he lived there and had a job there, which was east of the farm. So we never really grew up in the same family per se with Tosh. He was kind of off on his own.
And how was he's what about
He's
7 or 8 years older than you?
he's just under Chuck.
Right, but I mean, how? What's the span between you all? So he's 31 and you're 34, right? So, oh no, that's Seth. Sorry, he's 29. So he's like 5 years older than you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what about was there? I mean, what do you remember about um, World War II at all? I mean,
Well, I remember growing up during World War II. I don't remember a lot of prejudice. I knew there was some, but it didn't really affect us kids too much. Uh, we were kind of isolated in that area. I do remember that during the war, uh, they sent German prisoners of war to that area to help out on the farms. But other than that, I don't remember an awful lot.
was there? I mean, so you're a teenager, right? During that,
Well, I was at
young
that time,
teenager.
no, I wasn't even that old at the time that happened.
So do you remember any
So
like
because
shortages?
I was
Do you
only
remember
7 or 8 years old then. No, I don't remember any of that.
no rationing, no
That
concerns
that
about?
happened a little later, I think, where uh, there was rationing. You had stamps. People saved S&H green stamps,
Hmm.
things like that. I remember we were on a farm west of town. I remember at grade school, for an example, uh, you couldn't get, you couldn't buy things like bubble gum.
Right.
That was something rare. So anytime the store had some, at you know, at stock, everybody rushed to get that kind of stuff because you couldn't buy it otherwise. Candy bars and all that were very scarce. So whenever you heard of one of the stores had something, everybody rushed there to get it.
Bolt out and get it. Huh?
Yeah.
And what was I don't know, what was like a treat that, or something like that
Well, I
that you
think
were
bubble
crazy
gum.
about?
I remember Fleur's bubble gum was something that was good to get. Uh, any kind of candy bar, you know, people couldn't buy those. Just go out and buy them, you know. So whenever any store got them, people rushed to go get them.
Right. And what were stores like? I mean, was it like,
They're just little, very small, confined uh, uh, stores that, you know, stocked normal things like you could get meat, and potatoes, and those kind of things. You know, obviously they weren't very big, so you didn't have a big selection of a lot. So, but you know, you didn't even think about that at the time. That's what you're used to.
so it wasn't like a supermarket
Oh
where
no,
you've
no
got
way. That nothing like that at all.
20 brands of the same thing?
No, nothing like that at all.
And was that, you're doing everything by foot, right? Or how far is this? What do you do when you got to
Well,
make a trip to the store? What then?
people didn't do that. People, they had cars. Maybe not the best cars, but they had cars. And they'd go shopping once a week on Saturday. That's when everybody would go shopping. So you got everything you needed for the week on that day. When we moved into town, that was a different situation because then we were in town where, and all the kids walked everywhere, you know, until they were old enough to get a car or whatever. But everybody was on their own back then. You walked to school, you walked to the store, you walked downtown, whatever, you know.
So was so everybody goes and shops on Saturday. Was that kind of
Absolutely.
was that an event?
Oh yeah, for everybody. And maybe not the little kids. I remember we didn't because we were young kids, but the older kids got to go to town along with the mom and pop, you know. Everybody did their shopping then.
Yeah, and socializing, right? I would assume.
I probably,
I mean, I would think that would be a way for people to get together outside of school or.
well, I think, you know, probably that kind of socializing happened on Sundays, you know, uh, at the local church or whatever, you know, kind of thing.
I mean, was there within your family, was there any religious element?
Oh yeah,
Or,
you know, we were all, uh, there was a Japanese church, and I remember Father Kano, the younger kids, I mean the older kids actually went to a Japanese school, uh, you know, for a while. None of us younger kids did. None of the younger kids went to this school because they disbanded that probably after the war sometime. I don't know. But uh, like I said, there was some socializing, particularly among the families, probably on Saturdays at the hall, where I think everybody, you know, they had events there all the time, different parties and that kind of thing.
was there, so was the Japanese school, like, was it, what was the idea of it? Was it to maintain a Japanese
Culture.
culture,
Sure,
language?
sure. But but as I mentioned, the church itself was, I believe, Episcopalian, and a lot of the families that belonged to that church at that time. I don't remember ever having a. It probably happened at the hall, where they had the services, probably on Sunday. Uh, I remember that the priest was a Father Cotto. Uh, that's about all I remember.
And
I didn't have to go to the school, and I don't remember ever going to the church itself per se. Uh, and I doubt that Stan or Seth or anybody else did anything like that either.
so that was maybe part of the community, but not something you guys did as a family?
Right. Well, probably the older part of the kids did, yes. But as we as we grew up, the younger generation, they kind of gravitated towards doing their own thing with their peers, in the community, and not as part of the Japanese community.
Right. Did your parents at all
Parents what?
go to the church and
Oh,
do
I'm
that?
sure they did. Yeah, I'm sure they
Uh-huh.
did.
Now, based on, do you think something they believed in, or something that was kind of like, okay, we're assimilating here, kind
Yeah,
of?
right. No, I think the community, the Japanese community, stuck together as a community, but I think they formed their own church and assimilated, uh, you know, uh, like Father Cotto. They probably brought him in, and he spoke English and all that. So, he was. I think they were trying to assimilate in the community.
Right. Right. And so, let me see here. So, let me look at your parents here. So, your father lived till 1960, right?
Yeah.
And so, where, and they stayed in Scottsbluff the whole time, correct?
Yeah, but
Or-
at the,
or
the,
right
the
in-
later years, we lived in town. Uh, I remember at that time, after, I don't remember when we moved into town from the farms, but after that, he and Mom had a job as janitors at one of the restaurants, King Fong Cafe downtown. So I remember having to help them every so often, when they were doing that.
Mm-hmm. Tell me some of the jobs you had growing up. I mean,
Well,
obviously farming, but
yeah, and all of the kids had to do that. They had to hoe beans for weeds and this kind of thing. They had to pile potatoes, So while we were on the farm, all the kids had to do that. After we moved out of there, then when we lived in town itself, we didn't have to do much. Uh, you know, uh, but like I said, I do remember Mom and Dad having a janitor's job, and I do remember having to get up every so often to go help them. But other than that, I had a paper route, uh, when I was going to high school. So that's how I got my money, was delivering papers early in the morning.
mm-hmm. Now, was that something you would do by yourself, or was that like
Oh,
with
yeah.
Seth, or?
No, you
or
got a
what-
bicycle, you went around and you delivered the papers.
Uh-huh. What was that
And on
like?
Saturdays-
Winter time, that's no joke there.
You got that right. That was a real problem in the wintertime when it's snowing and blowing like hell. you still had to get up and deliver the papers.
So how would you do that? I'd imagine there's times where you can't ride your bike.
And you go push it. Later on, after I got to, to be old enough where I could drive, once in a while, you'd be able to get a car and take them around, but that didn't happen very often. But it was mostly, if it was really stolen really bad, certain areas you may have to walk and push your bike.
So how would that work? They would just drop off a big stack of papers at your house?
No, we had to go to the printer. Well, it was all one building. The paper offices and everything, the printing press was all in one area. It was downtown. So all the kids had to ride their bikes down there to pick up their papers. They did the folding themselves, put them in their bags. And there was a bag that you put on the front of your bike, and you tied it down via the handlebars, so that it couldn't go anywhere. So we had to get all the papers, fold them, and sometimes, or usually, I think we had to put rubber bands around the papers so that they wouldn't blow away or anything like that. So we had to do that, put bands around everything, and put them in your bag, take off.
So there must have been a lot of paper boys then.
Oh, absolutely. All the papers were delivered that way.
Meaning that like it's not like they would drop off a pile at your house and you would go do some this direction, do some that direction.
Each of the kids, depending on the area, had their own routes. So they split it up,
And was that did you enjoy that? Or how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I did. It was okay. It was an okay job because you made money, but it was pretty bad in the wintertime, because it was cold and snow and wind you had to put up with. Or when it was raining like hell, that's obviously a problem. But the worst part is the winter.
And so do you remember what the other kids were doing? Like what
The what?
Well, your siblings, like what were they doing for work, or what was?
Well, we were also spread out by then, I don't remember Stan doing anything. Seth, I think, was pretty much out of high school by then. So he joined the service.
What service did he join?
The Navy.
He was in the Navy?
Yeah.
And so, what is this? This is like late 40s, right? Right after World War
Yeah.
II.
Right.
So you're 16. So, let's see. So say the war ends, and how old are you? Well, tell me, do you remember the war ending? What that meant?
No. Very little. In fact, I don't really remember too much about it. But it had to be, 40, 48, 49, something like that. So I was just going into high school at that time.
Well, it was before then. I think it ended 45, 46.
Okay.
But
So I was
splitting hairs.
So I was just, I graduated from grade school, I guess, before I got to high school, which happened in 49, I guess.
So you graduated from high school in 1949.
52.
Oh, 52.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you remember? What do you remember about high school?
Oh, I don't know. I think I enjoyed high school. I took math and science classes. Was pretty active uh, socially in being, uh, in a lot of the clubs and that kind of thing. I also was a student manager on the football and track. Uh,
Did you play sports?
no, I did not. I didn't have the size for it, So that's the reason I became a student manager.
And so, did they? Were you? Did you do like student politics or anything like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I ran for a lot of the offices. I was, I don't know, probably in each of the classes, grades that I progressed in, I was probably a participant in a lot of the clubs. So I was in High Y, which was, I guess, a service organization for freshmen and that kind of thing. Glee, wasn't in any of the glee clubs or anything like that because I couldn't sing. But I was on the student council. I think I was probably an officer at each of the grades that I was in sophomore, junior, and senior. But it was something that we just did as kids.
Right. I mean, was there? I mean, was there highlights of it? I mean, was there stuff that's like that changed maybe how you looked at things or your interests?
No, I don't think so. I think basically the courses that I took kind of dictated where I was going to be, what was going to happen later on. When I figured I had to go to college, and so I just took the courses accordingly and just gravitated to that.
So there was no particular teachers that
No,
kind of.
I don't, there was no special teacher or anything like that directed me in any particular direction.
Mm-hmm. And so was there, within high school, was there, well, I mean, was your destiny more or less kind of, did it present itself or did that happen later on?
So I think just, like I said, based on the courses that I took in high school, dictated where I was going. I decided at college that I'd have to take engineering, and so that's what I did. After that, then you do interviews. After you graduate from college, you do the interviews and all that, and that kind of dictates where you end up.
Right.
Depending on the kind of job you got.
So, but within high school, did you gravitate to engineering or did you more or less apply to the college and
No,
then...
I did. For whatever reason, going into high school, I decided I had to take basic math and science courses, so that kind of drove, I guess, me to engineering.
Mm-hmm. And so when you say you're in high school and what does college look like? Do you have to apply? How does that work for you?
You don't have much choice back then. You know, you're obviously limited economically. So, you know, we had one main college in Nebraska, and that was the university. It was a land grant college, so you could get uh, fairly cheap tuition, and but we had to take ROTC because it was a land grant college. But that kind of, you know, depending on where you are, kind of dictates where you're going to go to school, unless you got the resources to do otherwise.
So what does the land grant college mean?
At that time, all it meant to me is you had to take ROTC. But basically, the government gave the land to the schools uh, so that they could, you know, have the resources to get to be a university and so on.
Right. So they had free,
Yeah.
no rent, basically.
Well, I
They
guess
built
whatever.
buildings. But,
Yeah, whatever.
Huh. And so you go to college, right?
Yeah.
That's now you're moving away.
Yeah. Well, then you interview with the different companies, and then pick one, and that's where you go.
No, but I mean from high school to college.
Yeah.
What so now you're going to move to Lincoln?
Oh
right?
yeah. At that time, Tosh lived in Lincoln, and so when I went to Lincoln, I moved in with him, and he had an apartment, and so that's how I started out there. Uh, while I was going to school, I stayed with Tosh for some time, and we had developed other friends, and Tosh had friends, so I moved in with some of his friends, and then, you know, in the 4 years I was there, I probably lived 4 or 5 different places. I had different roommates from one time to another. I lived in the dorm one year, I think my senior year, I lived in the dorm.
Huh.
Things like that.
Usually it's the other way. Or well, now it is.
Yeah, I know.
So, what about Seth? Was he there or was he
Seth was in the service
Uh-huh.
at the time. When I started college, I think he was, 2 years behind me. But he was in the service, and after he got out, he went to school based on the GI Bill, just like every other GI did at that time. And he was, I think, 2 years behind me at the university.
And so why did he join the service and you didn't? Or vice versa?
I have no idea. You know, what their thinking was at the time. But he probably, you'd have to ask him that. I don't know why he decided he was going to do that rather than something else.
So did he join the service post World War II? Like after the war?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
bold.
because he was, what was he then? He was, at the time I went to college in 52, 53. So, yeah, he had to have been post World War II. Yeah.
Wait, so you graduated high school 52 or?
I graduated in 52, high school.
Okay.
And so he was what, 2 years earlier? In 50?
Yeah. So he's born 31.
Yeah. So he was 3 years, I guess, ahead of me.
Right. So he would have joined like 49, 48.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow. That's pretty bold given.
Well, I think
Like-
probably at that time, maybe a lot of kids didn't have
the resources.
to do anything else.
Yeah. Huh. And so then he came back, and then did you overlap there at school for
Yeah,
that?
oh yeah, yeah. After I was still in school when he came back. So, we were both there at the same time for a while.
And is he, I mean, who were you closest with within your family? I mean, who would you consider who you were tightest with?
Probably Harry and Chuck.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that? I mean, they're almost like parents to you.
Well,
Not parents, but-
Harry, because he was older, and after I graduated and all that, he was kind of the patriarch of the family, so to speak. Chuck, because he was home. I remember, because he was home, and all of us kids were spread out all over. He was kind of the focal point of the family at home at that time. I remember Chuck, he was a mechanic. He bought me my first car I ever had after I graduated in high school. In college, he had bought the car for me so that I would have transportation to drive out here and so on. So I remember
To drive
that.
out to California?
Yeah.
Or to,
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. No, that's very.
So
Very,
we were because he was home and a focal point. He was like that's why I probably mentioned his name as being more close, than others.
Right. So it seems like everybody's more or less, other than Chuck, who else is in Scottsbluff? Your folks and Chuck. And is there, I mean,
Stan and Yoss, that's it.
Okay.
After
so was
Toast
Stan.
was gone, Seth was in the service. So, towards the end there, it was
So Stan was there.
his dad.
Did he go to, what was his path? What did he,
I think after he got out of high school, he and a bunch of his buddies decided to join the Marines. I don't think he was in high school. He probably wasn't that focused on going to college or anything like that at that
so what,
time.
he graduated 54, I'm guessing?
54,
He's
yeah.
2 years older than you, or
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah, 54. So he and a bunch of his buddies joined the Marines. And after he got out of the Marines, then he went to school. Really? Is that what it is? And it was a teacher's college. I don't know whether it's Greeley or something called something else at the time.
Uh-huh.
That's where he went.
And that's pretty close to Scottsbluff, right?
Well,
Isn't
that whole
or is it-
area is probably, it's close to Denver. So it's
oh,
about the same
closer.
distance.
Okay. And so now you have, say, mid-50s, right? Chuck is, Chuck and your folks are it in Scottsbluff, right?
Right.
Why is this not grabbing? Sorry. This is one. Oh, there we go. And Yaz are there.
Yeah.
And who is this over here? Sorry, we have a whole. Oh, these are these people, Yushizu, Shiba. Those are relatives of your. Sorry, that wing of the family. That's your mom's Is it brother? Yeah. So your mom had a brother, and then this is their family here. I don't know where they were actually. We can look at them. Oh yeah, they were in Utah.
Okay.
Did you know them at all?
No.
Was there any
I
overlap?
I do know we had relatives in Utah, but I didn't know who they were.
So that would have been your mom's,
Side, I guess.
yeah, your mom's brother. I wonder if they came out together or at different waves again. So now, yeah, I can see where Chuck kind of becomes, in a sense, the Scottsbluff connection.
Right.
Yeah, I met him maybe when there was the reunion out there.
In Scottsbluff.
Yeah.
That's what you, yeah.
But yeah, that was no, they seemed very nice. So, dude, but your folks were still there, right?
Yeah.
And now they're, I mean, so was there a bit of a, I don't know, they're still like very Japanese, right?
Oh, yeah.
In
yeah,
a sense.
Yeah.
And you guys have all like, and it feels to me like because of the war and other factors, like you guys are really about as American as it gets.
Right.
Right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Well, all of our friends, that's who they were.
right. Well, it just seemed like the war made it a really not great time to be Japanese
Well,
for
like I said,
identity.
we had very little problems there that I remember. Now, maybe somebody like Harry, well, but he was gone, so I don't really remember too much.
Right.
Any prejudice at all. I hear a comment once in a while, but that's it.
Right. But I mean, not maybe so much on the prejudice side, but like there's a certain, I'd imagine, a bit of distancing because you're not fluent in Japanese.
Right.
And your folks aren't so good at English.
Right.
Right? So there's a gap there.
Right.
And so how do you think that played out as, like, do you think that kept you, from being close or
Probably because I couldn't consider the family really close because it just everybody's interests were different and so I think it just happened. That's the way it was.
right? Do you, and so say during the span, right? You're Lincoln,
Yeah.
right before you graduate and end up out here. Do your dad is still working as a janitor, or is he what's he doing at that point? You think?
Probably, I don't really remember, but probably he was still a janitor at that time. Let's see, what did you say? He died at 60?
Yeah.
Okay, so probably he was still a janitor at that time.
Now, do you think there was a movement away from farming because of what do you think? Why do you think that was?
I think it was economics. Because all the kids were gone pretty much, I think it's just the way it was at that time. I don't think we had the resources of economics, because Chuck was still home, Tosh was gone, Harry was gone. It was probably a situation where we couldn't, it was not a tenable uh, situation at that time to be farmers. For us, I mean, you know.
Well, there's no longer an us because everybody's out doing their.
Yeah, right, that's
Different
what I
thing.
meant. I mean, for our family,
Yeah.
it was not a,
He doesn't
a
have
viable.
have his workforce.
Yeah, I don't think it was a viable situation then.
Right. Right. I could see that. I was wondering if maybe there was a physicality of it that was not something you did into older age or
Yeah.
anything. Let's see. So he was born in 1886. So that's a long life. So 86 to 60. That's 14. That's 74, 74, 73, 74 years old.
Yeah.
Huh. What do you remember about when your father died?
I think I was out here then. Yeah, had to be. So I really don't remember much except I don't know how I found out. And so I went back there and back to Scottsbluff from out here. So I don't really remember too much about the last few years, you know, after I got out of school.
It wasn't like something you would call your mom about, or
No,
that was not.
No, it wasn't. I don't remember that it was a, serious situation at the time, you know. But after it happened, uh, and I went home, I remember Mom saying that he passed away and all that, but I don't remember too much before then.
Mm-hmm. What did he?
I don't
die
think he
What
was-
did he die from?
I don't know.
Let me see here. He's acting. It's very slow, I think, because it's recording the video. Sometimes,
know what the
sometimes
cause-
there's like death certificates.
Yeah, I
in
don't
here.
know whether there was a cause of death or not.
Let me see here. Because sometimes there's like these marriage certificates and things like that, and sometimes it will give reasons, but you don't remember
No.
it being like an event or
No.
anything like that. Do you want to take a break for a minute? Or
Yeah.
You want to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a
Unless
break.
we're about done.
No, I mean we can do this infinitely.
Oh, I don't think so.